This tutorial is going to be about using 3D models in Cinema 4D, Cinema 4D Lite. This is by popular demand. So if we type in 3D models, or even 3D models for Cinema 4D, then we get a bunch of searches, and the first one that comes up is this site called TurboSquid, and that's the one I'm going to use. There are others. You can explore other ones if you want. And on a site like this, we find lots of 3D models that we can download and use. Some of them are free. Some of them are absolutely not free. You can see that some of these are quite detailed and quite expensive. So there's something to think about, maybe a future career as a 3D modeler. In any case, I'm going to search for a plane. I'm going to grab a free one. And this is the one I like, the Sopwith Camel. So I'm going to click on my free Sopwith Camel. And to do this, you'll need to sign up for an account. It's the usual thing. Sign up with an email address and verify it, and then you'll be able to download and use the different items. Just waiting for the download page to come up. In any case, when I finally download the image, here we go. When I finally download the Sopwith Camel, it'll come as a compressed file, which will end up, let me see, it will end up looking something like this. So it will have the Sopwith Camel for C4D, and in there, when we expand that, you'll actually have the C4D, the object file, and the Max version of it in this one. So we're interested in the C4D, and it'll come with a C4D file and a JPEG, which looks like a sort of cutout of the painted sections of the model. We'll come to that in a moment. I'm going to just grab these two files, and by the way, I've put these on BBLearn if you want to just download them straight from BBLearn. I'm going to my desktop. Of course, I'm going to create a new folder called Plane 3D. And I'm going to drop my two files, my C4D file and my JPEG file, into that file, that folder. So now I'm ready to open up Cinema 4D, and before I do anything else, of course, I save my project into my Plane 3D. 3D project, all good practice, as you well know. I'm going to make a new composition. I'll call this Plane 3D comp. I'm going to leave it on high HDV. I'm going to put the resolution at 1/4 frame, which will give me some speed up in the rendering, and 5 seconds is probably, you know what, we'll give ourselves 10 seconds in case we need it. Background color black, that's all fine. And now I have a composition, and I'm going to create a new Maxon Cinema 4D layer. And of course, as we know, Maxon Cinema 4D layers require an external file for each layer. So this can be the Plane 3D. Yeah, and we're going to create a new layer. Now, now I want to bring in my plane object into this, this layer. So I'm going to go File, Merge Objects, and point to the Sopwith-Camel C4D. There's a little bit of a missing plugin which is about global illumination and depth of field, but I'm just going to ignore that, and here is my plane. Now it's come in with the texture mapping. If it didn't, then we would create a new texture map and simply point the texture map to the JPEG file. In this case, there's no need to do that. It's all come in fine. We can move our plane around. Now, I've seen some weird behaviors here with some of the lower spec Macs where students are not able to move the model completely. It ends up moving part of the model or one vector point. If this is the case, then use the coordinates over here to move your model around. I hope that doesn't happen to you, but as I say, I've seen that happen with some of the lower spec machines, and that's the workaround that we've used. So you can do everything over here. You can scale it, not that you would really want to. You can do rotations, which is something we might want to do here, especially that one. So just be aware. You know, you can find other ways of doing it if your move, scale, and rotate controls are giving you any problems here. So what I want to do is to have a camera here in my world view and have the plane fly from behind the camera and fly into the distance in front of the camera. So the first thing I want to do is, well, no, not make a light. I'm going to just do that for. The first thing I want to do is make a camera. So if I zoom out and sort of spin around, I can sort of see where my camera is. Yeah, I can see I've got a camera there. So I want to make the plane fly. So let me see if we sort of move the plane around here and then kind of spin it around so it's kind of facing the way of the plane. Let's just check that in the 3D view. So if we look at our 3D view, it's kind of sort of sitting at the right angle now, and I'll just move it, I'm just going to move it to the side and maybe back a bit as well. So it's kind of in place. It's behind the camera and sort of ready to fly in past the camera. If I look in the other views just to sort of check where I am, okay, let's have a look at the side view. Actually, I think I'd like to start it maybe a little bit above just a little bit above the camera here. So I'm lifting it up into place there. This doesn't really tell me anything different. That's all fine. Okay, so right. So I'm just going to go. No, while I'm here, I'm going to set up a spline for my camera, for my plane to go on. Now a spline is like a 3D vector. So I'm just going into the pen tool here, and it's like a vectors. It's like the pen tool in Illustrator. We click it for like a type 1 point. We drag it for a type 2 point. So I'm just dragging a sort of flight path here. I might even zoom out a bit further and hang on, let me just okay, and then escape to end the spline. So we have an open-ended spline that looks like this, and this one here, I'm just going to go to my move tool. This one here looks a bit strange. I'm just going to go in on that one and sort of what's wrong here? Yeah, maybe just straighten up the vector there a bit. Let's just have a look at that. Yeah, I think this is fine. Now, in the plan view, looking top down, then we've got a nice movement. If we go to the side view, it's actually all in one straight line. And I'd like to work in the side view and lift the first point up a bit, so it sort of flies down. Maybe this middle point kind of down, so it's right in this. It sort of comes down in the center of the view of the camera, and then it sort of climbs up again. Climbs up again and sort of, maybe not that much. It climbs up and then sort of levels out. But I want all of these to be nice and smooth. There's no jerky movements in any of this. So now I'll just go back and check these. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. So what I have now is a spline vector. Vector's working in 3 dimensions. And if I go back into my my perspective view, there's this view. If I look in the camera, I can see the plane's going to come in from outside here, sort of do a dip, and then fly off into the distance out here. This one might still need a bit of tweaking. That, to me, that looks a bit jerky. That maybe that's better. Yeah, we don't want any weird turns in midair for the plane. So that's the spline, and now the magic happens here. With a right mouse click on the plane, we can get the Cinema 4D tags. By the way, if that doesn't work for you, if you're using Control click and you're not getting these, I have a trick for you to try. Go to Edit. Go to Edit, Preferences, and the second one you'll find is this Input Devices. You've got one here called Control click for right click. Make sure that one's ticked. If it's ticked, then it should be like I'm seeing here. You'll see Cinema 4D tags when you right click on an object. And the second one down is called Align to Spline. So now we have in our Sopwith Camel an Align to Spline object. And in the properties for this object, it has a property called Spline Path. So we're going to grab our spline that we just made and we're going to drag it down into Spline Path. And that will move your plane to the start of the file. And then we have a position. 0% is the start and 100% is the finish. So start to finish, 0 to 100%. And what we can do in our timeline then is just say, okay, on frame 0, I want to be at position 0. And actually you can click here, but another way to put the keyframe in, apart from what we have been doing here, is to go to the position of 0 and click there, and you'll see that has now put a keyframe on the timeline. It'll be at position 0. Let's say we'll give it 3 seconds to get to the end. So we'll go up to 100% and hit another keyframe, and now we should be able to play it and see our plane move. So the last thing I want to do is maybe just play with the rotations a bit. Now let's go into the full perspective view here and see, like when it first comes in, it's kind of dropping down like that, and then it goes into a sort of turn that way. So I mean, just kind of use your judgment about how it could work. I think it needs to be more in a dive at this position. So if we go into the plane and on the coordinates, let's just see if we can crunch that in. So on the coordinates, we've got the rotations here. I think maybe 0 is okay for that. Maybe, let's see, is it this one? Yeah, I think we should be more in a bit of a dive kind of position there. So again, what's this one? Yeah, I quite like, you can see he's sort of following the shape of the spline a bit better there now. So I'm going to put keyframes for those 3 rotation properties there, and then, now obviously I don't want him to stay like that. When he gets down to kind of this point, I think we need to maybe turn him a little that way. Definitely, other way. Definitely start to straighten him out that way, and definitely start to put a bit of a roll that way on it. So that's at that's about frame 33 there. So I'm just putting keyframes there. Let's just have a look at that now. So he comes in, does a nice little roll, and I think sort of towards here he needs to be again facing up a bit. So let's play with that a bit. We'll have him kind of following the line of the spline a bit better. We'll have him more sort of climbing, and just tilt that one. And how's this one? I think, yeah, we have him sort of straighten out a bit at this point. Let's see what that looks like. So now we have our little plane fly in, do a nice bank, and sort of take off into the distance, and so on. Obviously, we'll put another bank so that he flies off into the sunset rather than flying sideways. So I'm not going to go into the details about lighting here. If you wanted to, you could create some sunlight or some infinite light and make sure that your plane is lit in the way that you would want it to be. Some students have said to me they would like to have something like a plane fly around their logo, starting from the front to the back. So obviously, for that, you need to have your logo in this same layer. So do everything in one layer, so that you can have the plane flying in front of it when it's in correct perspective, and behind when it's in, when it's behind the logo. So yeah, these are just some tricks to get models working with a minimum of pain.